Then I'll bring you in. You're good to go. I think we're live. So this is the beginning of this live stream. Aloha, everybody. My name is Ka'ala Souza, and I'm working with the Workforce Development Council here in Hawaii to do this live stream. I'm super excited. We're talking story today with Allyson Knox, and we're going to be talking about workforce issues, of course. And I'm not sure about you, but we're on a new platform here. We're using YouTube, and probably because that whole Zoom fatigue, kind of real. When I first heard about Zoom fatigue, I was like, this is that, toughen up. But then, no joke, I think I had 8 video conferencing calls yesterday, like all in a row. I was on Microsoft Teams, I was on Zoom, and now I'm tired, right? And then I had a 3-hour computer course at night. So we're on a brand new live streaming platform here. And this is why. Allyson Tasaka, our director over at WDC, and I have been talking about this for a while because we've been working on this thing called the Workforce Resiliency Initiative for months and months and talking to tons of people and hearing all of their perspective on what's going on around the world, what's going on around the country. And one of the things that we said was we need to share this information, but I don't know. So I'm hearing great information and thinking, I need to bring these people on. We need to find a way to connect. So we're just going to have a talk story here today with one of the people I was talking to for the last 6 months or so. And let me just introduce, hang on just one second and put this up on the screen. We're going to be talking to Allyson Knox today. She's a senior director of education policy at Microsoft and super exciting person to talk to. I have her bio over here, and let me just read this real fast. It says that she's the education policy lead for the Microsoft Philanthropies team. Allyson, I can't even say that. Somebody had to ask me what that was. I'd be in trouble. But she's the Microsoft policy lead for the Microsoft Philanthropies team based in Washington, D.C., works with government leaders to prioritize digital skills, computer science, and STEM subjects in the U.S. and throughout the world. She testified before the U.S. House Subcommittee. I mean, she's somebody, and she has tons of knowledge. And so I come and asked her to join us here on our live stream. And so if you could, Allyson, welcome. Are you here? Can you talk? Can we do things? Say something. Let me make sure I can hear you.
I'm here.
Oh, great.
I'm back. I'm in Washington, D.C. And
oh my goodness.
Yeah, and it's kind of on April 1st, and this is no April 1st joke. It's a little bit cold and almost snowy here today.
Oh my goodness. Well, you know what? I was looking out my window about 5 minutes ago, and no joke, it was raining. It was raining a little bit. Yeah, it's tough, I'm just kidding. I got a couple of people putting comments already. Somebody had asked if this was going to be recorded, and yes, it is. We're looking to kind of just pick your brain, talk story. So happy to have you.
Sure.
What time is it over there?
It's 5:35, and
5:35.
It's great. It's great. And I want everyone to know that because of this broadcast today, I now know what talk story means. That's like a new Hawaiian term for me.
Yes,
so I'm excited about it.
I'm so excited to do this. A few weeks ago, Allyson and I were talking along with Jonathan Nobles and say, hey, we just want to talk story. And I realized that is a Hawaiian thing, So I sent you some links. What did you think about talking story first? Tell me some of your thoughts on that when you first were learning about it.
Well, I loved it.
Yeah.
I mean, I loved it. It's authentic and real and human. And it's sort of like, let's share our story versus maybe try to convince one another of something or package something. And so as soon as I read what it was you were trying to sort of get at, sort of the spirit of this, I thought to myself, okay, let's just talk and create a story.
Oh, got it. Perfect. And, one of the things that we do when we first meet people, right, is, we introduce ourselves. What's your name? What do you do? We know you work at Microsoft. But in Hawaii, we always ask the most important critical question is what school you went to. And we don't really care about the university or college. And I think you went to Harvard. Is that correct?
I did.
Okay,
I did
okay.
for did some graduate school work there.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. But that's cool and all. But in Hawaii, we want to know what high school you went to. So tell me what high school
Okay.
you went to. Just
I
tell me
went to
the name.
East Lansing High School, and if it were the
Oh,
morning, actually, and we were having coffee, and I had my coffee mug, it would be blue with white letters, and it would say East Lansing High School.
oh,
I'm not
nice,
kidding.
nice. So you're representing the high school. That's what we do too. We want to find out. Really, it's not about the schooling or education. It's whether or not we know the same people. So
Oh,
so let me just ask you, do you know Kimo Boy? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. But that's how we connect. That's how we find out. And, I got a couple of comments over here. Isabel, my bad. We're trying to talk about, your question was, can you turn on the closed captioning? And I can't, darn it. I don't know how to do it right now. Hopefully Michelle from our office is on and she can jump on this. I promise you, Isabel, we'll try and make that later. Do that the next time. Because speaking of digital challenges, that's one of the biggest things that I've learned too, is that the closed captioning, people who are deaf or hard of hearing. I did a presentation to our vocational rehab group, and I just completely spaced and absent-minded on that. So anyway, thank you very much, Isabel. We'll try and get out in just a little bit. But if you could, Allyson, just share a little bit about, again, tell us a little bit of your story. How did you get involved at Microsoft? Because that sounds so legit.
yeah. Really, I got involved with this idea of connecting business and education together and trying to be a helpful facilitator back in Michigan. So I grew up in Michigan, and I had 8 different jobs in Michigan. So I've done everything from working a small local bookstore in my hometown to working at Michigan State University and doing cooperative extension work in different counties, and worked at state government for a while. And so just really got a lot of different experiences and kept looking at this relationship between business and education. And wrote some papers, went off to another grad school, and then the U.S. Chamber of Commerce in Washington, D.C. And we sort of they offered me a position, and I was working there. And then Microsoft, this was 16 years ago, so I'm feeling old. They called. I had gotten to know them because of, I think, a Harvard professor. I had done some work for this professor.
Right.
Anyway, they called and they said they were starting this new initiative called Partners in Learning. And they said, would you be interested in helping us think it through and create it? And I said, yeah. And the reason why I think I've been at Microsoft for 16 years, well, a couple of different reasons. One is they are very much at the forefront. This mission of, everybody on the planet empowered to do more, achieve more. It really is at the heart and soul of everything we do. And this commitment to inclusivity is so much, it's sort of part of our DNA. And every year there's a new challenge and a new body of work and new ideas and new things to learn. And so it doesn't feel like 16 years. I feel like it's been like blink my eyes and here I am. And it's a very stimulating place to work.
I believe, we're here in Hawaii and as far away from everybody else in the world as there can be. And we're pretty stimulated here by things that are going on. And when you talk about new challenges that are happening every year, obviously 2020 was that was pretty unique. And one of the things that we want to talk about with you is at least continue the conversation that you and I have had for the last couple of months. I want to share that information because I want everybody else to hear this too. Is like, what does the future of work look like? You talked about some of the Microsoft being right at the forefront of digitization and digital skills, and I want to talk about that. I also want to have you share some of the resources that are out there. Tons of resources. Like after I first spoke to you, I sent the link over to my daughter. She's in Texas. I'm like, hey, you and your husband, get on this. There's so much stuff that you guys are offering. So that's where I want to go in our conversation today. We don't have that much time. I don't know if you know, but in Hawaii, people with the last name Souza, it's a Portuguese name. That usually means somebody super smart. No, I'm just kidding. It usually means somebody who talks a heck of a lot. So I'm going to try and talk a little bit less. But if you could maybe just broad terms, give us a little bit about what's been happening in the last 12 months. Some of the changes that you've seen, the digital changes, the need for that, and then let's go into some of the resources a little bit later. Go ahead.
Sure. I mean, I think everyone around the world has really been caught off guard by COVID-19 and have struggled to create this new mindset and new way of living and working and engaging in society. I just think of people who've been trying to sign up for vaccinations recently, and folks who don't have an internet connection or don't have a device or maybe aren't as familiar with using a computer have struggled to even just become safe and get this vaccination. And we've seen this spotlight as a society just show this incredible divide that we have in the world, but especially, also in the United States, and underrepresented communities and women, they've been exponentially impacted by COVID-19 and sort of the changes in the workforce and the demands in the workforce and childcare needs. And so we have been trying to ensure that we are sort of grounded and real about what's happening and think through not just the data points, which are really important, but the human aspect and the community aspect, and make sure that whatever it is that we design or offer from a corporation, it's really meeting people where they are, where they want to go, and really making sure that we're designing things with people in community, as opposed to assuming that a corporation has sort of an answer to something, because we're learning about digitization and everybody going remote just as much as people are outside the company.
Yes.
So that's what's been going on. I think that it's been this learning journey for all of us.
Yeah, for sure. And as you were talking, I was scrolling through, I think the first blog that I saw from Microsoft back June 2020 talked about some of those data points that you're looking at, disproportionately affecting women, some minorities, the manual jobs that are more at risk. These are things that are all happening now. I take that back. They were happening before COVID-19, but just were, to me, accelerated by the pandemic, right? Now, all of a sudden, every job is a tech job, right? You don't have to be a coder, but I heard from one of our team members here in the Department of Vocational Rehab that a person he was working with was a janitor, lost his job and wanted to be a janitor, but he lost his job because the company he was with changed to an online scheduling app, and he couldn't get his schedule on his phone or text messages, and so didn't show up, lost his job. Every job is a tech job, and I'm looking at some of the things here on your site, and the data is incredible. There's the thing here on the screen that says the Great Lockdown is going to accelerate digitization. I mean, talk to us a little bit about some of those numbers. I'm not a numbers person, so don't get all math on me. But what should we be here in Hawaii maybe be paying attention to? Is there anything that any numbers that we should be watching or checking that's different?
I think that if I were living in Hawaii, and for example, I know your 7th fastest growing industry will always be recreation and travel, right?
Yes.
You guys are just at the forefront of that. And obviously people couldn't travel as much. And hotels struggled to, employ people because nobody was coming to the hotel. And so the question becomes, hopefully we're going to get back to traveling a lot, and then a lot of people will be going to hotels. But if we're not quite at that same capacity moving forward, what will service jobs look like in the future? And how can you sort of get yourself ready for the future and make sure that you've got digital skills, so that if you're working in a hotel or if you're working in the service industry, no matter what comes, you sort of are ready with the skills that you need if it goes remote, if there's less folks, if let's say, I just think of key cards in a hotel, like the people who understand infrastructure within a hotel and understand why a key card, unlocks a door, and why, and sort of, how you reset it if there's a problem with that key card. The person who understands sort of that digital infrastructure within that hotel, and the person who sort of raises their hand and says, I'm not afraid to learn about new technologies. Mm-hmm. I think that those folks, I don't have a crystal ball, but they most likely will be more poised to be okay, no matter what the ups and downs are within that industry. My worry, of course, is within certain industries, some jobs are just not going to come back in the way that maybe we had hoped, or they might just look really different. And so how can you always be ready for what's coming? And I do think digital skills, the more you have of them, we're seeing it right now. Like I'm not in Hawaii doing this talk, right. We have to be comfortable with this remote way of presenting. It's not a conference. So we're adapting, but the people who sort of say, I'm not afraid, I'm part of this, I'm going to raise my hand and learn more. I think they're just going to be a little bit more secure with any of the upcoming changes and some of the jobs that just aren't going to come back.
Yeah, love that. Nobody has a crystal ball. I think what I learned early on in this project, almost a year ago, was that you can't Google or Bing, I should say. You can't Bing the future. And I can't I tried. Like, what is the future of work in Hawaii? Can't do it. But I think what you said fits exactly into what we're trying to do with the WDC. We have this workforce resilience initiative. Our thing was, how do we have a workforce that's going to be able to bounce back or adapt and be ready for anything? Exactly like what you said. That's in our plan, that phrase. And ready for anything is pretty broad, because we can't know, right? We have kids who are in school right now studying that are going to be working in jobs that we can't even identify. 3, 4, 5 years from now, who would have thought, 10 years ago that Joe Rogan would have some Spotify show for $100 million, that podcast or Spotify would be a big deal. Uber, Lyft, gig economy. And imagine what's going to be happening in 2 years, right? So ready for anything, talking about digital skills. Are there any things, when you talk about digital skills, I want to go right into your skills initiative, because it came out back in last year. And can you just kind of walk us through how that happened, how you're maybe involved with that, and what that means, the Microsoft Skills Initiative?
Sure. So even though we don't have a crystal ball, just to go back to it,
please.
LinkedIn, of course, is a big part of our company, and really it's our internal experts in all things workforce. And there is a LinkedIn economic graph that people can visit, and also can find out what are the fastest growing industries and the fastest growing jobs. And we have, from the LinkedIn perspective, shared our projections with the governor of Hawaii. And I thought it might be helpful to just kind of broad brush stroke the growth that we're predicting. So of the 10 fastest growing industries in Hawaii are, and I don't think any of this will be a surprise, number 1 is healthcare. Number 2 is finance, education, software, corporate services. But what surprised me was 7 was recreation services and travel. 8 was nonprofit. That's a top 10 fastest growing industry in Hawaii. 9 is manufacturing, and 10 is a public administration. So one of the things I think is interesting within those industries is there's some job sets and job skills that cut across all of them. So if I'm really good at customer service, if I'm really good at project management, if I'm really good at being comfortable with dealing with technology in various forms, that's going to cut across almost every single one of the industries that I described. Now, and someone could say to me, but Allyson, how do you really know this? Within LinkedIn, we have in the United States, we have 177 million different members, and we have 2 million different companies who list job postings. So that's how we extract the data. Within Hawaii, we have 500,000 members, and we have 15,000 companies. So we look through all of that and we find those trends. So we feel pretty grounded in what it is we're projecting. And then if someone were to say, but within those industries, who are some of the employers that are hiring the most? We can predict that. We can show that. So University of Hawaii is one. The medical center in Hawaii, the First Hawaiian Bank, U.S. Army, the state of Hawaii. Again, it maps right down back to the industries. So that's all good. And so then we start talking about skills that people want to gain, badges that you can achieve, and then how those badges can then be populated on your LinkedIn profile, which is sort of a digital version of a resume, which is, it's fun. It's a way of expressing who you are and what you've done, and having other people in your community sort of validate your skills. And that's through your LinkedIn profile. So what's great about the offerings, and we can talk about that next, that we've got the 600 different courses on LinkedIn. What's great about that is once you finish one of these pathways, you automatically get a badge. And when you get this badge, it automatically populates onto your profile. And that then triggers a whole bunch of employers and industries they're going to pay attention to you in a different way, because electronically you've triggered a new sort of set of eyes to look at who you are and what you've learned.
Yeah, I am tripping out on that. Let me just turn this off real fast. I am super tripping on this. And I got to say that with my involvement with you, LinkedIn Learning, I went to go update my LinkedIn, my account. So make sure that it was fresh and kind of up to date. I had some things on side there that were old, maybe outdated, and not even relevant. So I'm in. And this is the thing I sent to my daughter, right? And said, there's free resources that and I know some of it is paid, right? And the LinkedIn Learning, but Microsoft, you guys, they release all these free content that could literally change her life in months. You could take these classes, and I'm pushing. So I'm not like like Microsoft, in fact, I'm on a Mac right now, but I'm pushing for this kind of stuff because they're just out there. So we're talking to Google, Coursera, whatever it is. But I just want to get.
Oh, but ours are way better. Ours are way better.
No,
definitely. I mean, there's a lot of online content. Like I almost feel like there are many people who, I'm included, I get on the internet and you can be quickly overwhelmed. And I don't know if you want to show on your screen this site, but I feel like this site, this LinkedIn portal to 600 different courses within 10 in-demand pathways, it's very intuitive and easy to use. Yeah, so here are the 10 pathways, and you can see 4 of them are focused on technical positions, and 6 of them are more general. Like I said before, like sales representative, project manager, those are more general. Software developers are obviously more technical. And you see the numbers on the screen, and that's the projection of how much those positions are actually going to grow over time. So we sort of validate we're credible and saying, we're not just saying that they're in demand. We can quantify that. And what's really fun, I work with these different nonprofits in Washington, D.C. who've been experimenting with the site. And in fact, just yesterday, I had sort of a debrief call with them. And I'm like, so what do people like and what don't people like? When you go into one of these pathways, one of the things that these people really liked is that the courses themselves, so first they're kind of beautiful. They're like beautiful videos, right? And they're adults and they take the audience very seriously. And they said that their clients in this particular nonprofit of DC, they really appreciate how professionally the tone is among the person presenting and sort of this anonymous group watching them. So I thought that was really great. And they also said they love the bite-sizable chunks of information. So you can go in and you're juggling a million things in your life. Your kids maybe are learning at home, or you're trying to do a webinar call with work, and then you also want to cook, but you want to get in maybe 4 modules of a course. Well, you can pick them, and you can also see how much time each take. So one could be like 3 minutes, one could be a minute, one could be 5 minutes. And so you feel like you're nudging your way through it, and at the end of it, you get this badge, and this badge goes onto your the completion of it goes right onto your profile. And again, that feedback loop, I think, helps adult learners stay engaged, because let's be honest, it's pretty hard, in this remote world, at least in DC, we're still very much at home. For people, you opened by saying sometimes you feel a little bit of that fatigue after being online all day. Why would you want to do more things online, right? And so making sure that you have those sort of shorter incentives to finish something, those little steps along the way, I think can be really helpful.
I like it. Okay, so full disclosure, I did not go to Harvard, but went to Winter Community College over here, represent HPU and all, but I didn't do well in school. I wasn't, focused or something. We have probably a better beach than, Boston. So I surfed a lot. But going on to some of the courses on LinkedIn Learning, I was thrilled. It was quick. It was, I can get into it. But I do have some digital skills. I'm not bad on this kind of stuff. But there's people that we just started like pre-pilot, pilot, basic computer digital literacy classes. I did one last night. It was like our 4th one. And we're going to be rolling it out through the whole state in April, in the middle of April. I'm sorry, this is April now. We're in the middle of April and all the way through June. So about 200 classes around the state, all the different islands. But what I'm realizing from the class last night was it's really hard for people if they don't have these basic baseline digital competencies to access this online learning. And have you guys seen that? Have you dealt with some of that around the country, around the world? How are people leveling up, those learners who are going to go, what? There's a right click? Well, one of the ladies said, there's a mouse in the middle of my wheel. This is amazing.
There's a wheel in the middle of my mouse, right? Yeah. That freaks me out too. And I think watching tonight, we have a couple of partners that I want to give a shout out to. One in particular is the National Skills Coalition. One of their key researchers did some great work on looking at who has digital literacies. The states and overall communities have struggled to track who has basic digital skills across any industry. And that's hard to get at. And so what they did is they looked at this literacy exam that's given all around the world. It's called PIAC. And the exam is administered online. And those people who said, I don't feel comfortable taking the exam online, became a percent. And then there are other people who took the exam online and really struggled to know how to drag and drop certain things on a screen. And that became a data set. And what they found when they looked at the numbers across the United States, they found that 1 out of 3 workers in the United States have limited or no digital skills. And that's a starting point. Is that like the perfect data point? We want to make it better. And we want to really understand who isn't feeling confident and understanding how to engage online, like you said. So I think one thing we all need to do is get better data. So I just applaud the National Skills Coalition for their leadership on that. And then there's another group called the National Digital Inclusion Alliance, and they look at this idea of digital equity. And that is all about a person not just having the skills, some basic digital literacy skills, but they need to also have a device that functions. And they also need to have affordable and accessible broadband. And when you have those three things come together, that's digital equity. And I applaud them for their leadership in that space. So what am I getting at? I'm getting at the folks that you're describing who don't feel that they have those basic skills. We want to be there. And I think the entire tech community wants to be there to say, part of it is feeling included. That even if you don't have the skills, that you're invited in. That your questions aren't bad questions. They're the good questions. They are the questions. And we want to be helpful and, again, work with nonprofits and governments to say, how are we scaffolding? What's the ladder from the person who's like, what is the mouse? Which is completely legitimate and fine. Yes. I mean, some people aren't going to be in front of a computer all day. And I have people in my family without any question who are terrified of all of this, right? So the big first thing I tell my family members is take a deep breath. You belong. No question is not the right, it's all questions are welcomed, and let's walk through it together. And and then I think people learn pretty quickly because they feel comfortable. It's like driving a car, right? At first you're like, I'm terrified. At least I was terrified.
Yes, got it. And I was terrified when my kids started driving, shout out to them. Hey, real quick, I want to flex a little here because, you mentioned the National Skills Coalition. Amanda is on our call here, dropped in some comments, greetings from New York, from Washington, D.C. And she's
Amanda is brilliant. She's brilliant.
Resource. And I want to get on one of these calls too.
Club of Amanda.
just crazy, she starts talking and she goes, well, in this state they're doing this, in this state they're doing that, and this, and all at the top of her head. But we were talking to her and we started looking at some of the other resources that we're collaborating with. North Star is one of them. They do a basic digital literacy assessment. They have this curriculum. So let me flex a little. We just contracted with a research company here in Hawaii, the WDC did, to get that data that you're talking about. So when you say 1 in 3 people in the workforce are going to struggle with digital skills, we're full in agreement. We're looking at that PIAC study as well and trying to figure out where Hawaii is. And unless Hawaii is some anomaly, that's 30% of our workforce is 200,000 people. And so, we're trying to figure out how do we scale everybody up. And it's not that we're unintelligent. It's just that we didn't need that kind of stuff before in our economy. Like when I live on Oahu, I don't need to drive 4-wheel drive. But when I go to Molokai, I have to learn. So, we're working with OmniTrack. It's a research company here. They have contracted with somebody up. They're very familiar with the PIAC, the OECD. So we have somebody who was on that study. And so we're trying to get to a point where we can say Hawaii is at this level of digital skills, of digital readiness. And so the WDC is sponsoring that study, and we're trying to figure out where we are and how we can move forward and get all of the canoes up. We have a group here too, the Broadband Hui. It's about, 200 people. And Jonathan Nobles is on that all the time, your colleague from Microsoft. But there's everybody who is involved, not just with the hardware stuff, which, Bert Lum is working on to make sure we have a connection, but also the digital equity that you mentioned. Like everybody has access. Our thing is the Digital Equity Declaration is digital for all, and A stands for access, and L stands for literacy, and the last L stands for livelihood. So we're in Hawaii, we're trying to push this, and which is why you're on this call, because we're trying to say to people here in Hawaii, there's resources. And I know that the Microsoft Skills Initiative, the things that we talked about where that stuff there, that is free. So I don't know how long that's going to be free.
And it's going to be free until the end of this calendar year, so December 31st. And there's also certifications on there that are more technical, that are fully reduced. So like from, you can take an exam and get certified for $15. I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think what you're trying to get at is like, well, if this is the problem, so what are we going to do about it?
Yes,
it's
exactly.
a lot, right? Well, I think my first response is no one entity or sector can do it alone. And that's not trying to get us out of it, but like, for example, in every community, there's a library. In every community, there's a community foundation. In every community, most communities, there's a community college. And so how do we make sure that there are people who are like digital navigators are present in one of at least those three entities to help with a basic digital literacies for all adults.
Yeah.
Another is, voicing the need, raising the hand and advocating for this, this sometimes very overlooked, I'll just say the word again, need, and consistently bringing it to people's attention. COVID is horrendous. If there are any silver linings, it has taken a spotlight and helped shine it on these needs. And I think it's a big moment for all of us to take a step back and say, okay, we have an issue. We need to track the data better. We need to help communities and states write better digital equity plans. We need more digital navigators and tutors and trainers to be helping more adults. We need those adults to be helping other adults. Like we need almost a feedback system. Yes. We need like almost a service corps out there to ensure that nobody is left behind at all. There should be no digital divide anymore. Yeah. There just shouldn't be. And right. I think if all the sectors work together and we put local communities sort of at the forefront and really solve and support those local communities, I think we'll get further faster.
That is the key. Thank you so much for saying that. And you can keep saying it all day. I'm going to play little sound bites forever. There's a couple of questions I want to share, and I'm late on this.
Not forever. Okay.
This is from Alan Hayashi. He is on our board at the WDC and very, very involved in the military. And he's talking about the military as an industry. I think you had mentioned some before. And he says, where do the military jobs rank? They should be pretty high. So I don't know if you can answer this with the data, but any thoughts on that?
I mean, first off, Alan, thanks for joining. And second off, you're 100% right. I should always mention the military as another industry, and they are present throughout the United States as well, throughout the world, but provide incredible training. We have such a need on cyber education and cybersecurity workforce issues, and they are at the forefront of making sure that can be, that kind of training is scaled as effectively and as efficiently as possible. I think we want to partner even more with the military and make sure that, for example, these courses are offered up and sort of contextualized in a way that makes sense for certain parts of the military. But those jobs are great, obviously, jobs. And we want to just be supportive in making sure that everybody who joins the military has those basic literacies and basic digital skills. So again, they get further faster, and that your key word is resilient. Whatever industry you join, you should have that toolkit so you're feeling very resilient.
That's exactly right. And I'm super happy you said that. And I feel like you gave me a little shout out to our workforce resiliency initiative, because that's what it's all about. And I had to learn how to spell resiliency on that too, because I never spelled it more than ever before. So Amanda had mentioned talking about the data. There's another question from Kimo Matthews. And he's talking about something that's really sensitive to us here in Hawaii. And he says that Hawaii needs to be a part of the fiber optic connectivity. International company installing should not be able to bypass Hawaii because of our population size. And just the other day in our Broadband Hui meeting, Bert Lum was showing a little graphic of, I think it was from California, or no, someplace in South America. Sorry, Bert, I was paying attention, I can't remember. But it was going to all the way west, and it just bypassed Hawaii. Hey, hello. And so, Kimo, I'm going to say, yeah, we're going to be hollering at you. And one more question here from Scott Murakami, super smart guy. He says, what would your recommendation be to help businesses accelerate they adopt the micro certifications as measures of competencies for both incumbent workers and individuals seeking employment? Great question, Scott.
Yeah, it is a great question. And we really didn't talk about incumbent worker training at all. Just the existing workers and how, again, employers make them feel resilient. And when you say what's the recommendation for businesses to accelerate, this is hard because if you're a small or medium-sized business right now and it is a struggle to keep your door open, or if it's it's a struggle to keep people employed, and then someone like me from the outside from a big corporation says, by the way, you should have 1 day a week or 1 day a month learning days, right, to accelerate those employees to be able to get certified and micro-credentialed and show their competencies. Those small and medium-sized employers might say, I'm already struggling and I need all of their time. And so I understand that. And so I say this with the awareness that it may not be a perfect fit for certain employers. But there is no doubt right now that employers are looking for ways to invest in their existing employees so that if the industry changes and shifts, their business is resilient, so that's part of the incentive. And the other incentive is we have had situations like in Midwest who've used some of our courses, and they were pretty upfront with their workers, and they said, we will be laying you off. So let's, while you're still working, get you one of the key certifications and skills so that before this happens, you're at least more equipped to handle what will be coming next in your career. And people were very, very appreciative. So again, resilient companies, resilient workers, and sometimes the employer, it makes that commitment to help that employee.
Yeah, perfect. It makes sense to me. And again, I've been in this like deep. I dream about this, and it's sad. So I wake up thinking about digital literacy, and I had one lady in a class. We're at Salt Lake Library. So speaking of libraries, we're partnering with the state library system, Stacey Aldrich, 51 libraries, every community. Not everyone, but a whole bunch of our communities have libraries. The community colleges are going to be providing instructors. This is happening in April. So we're rolling it out as a pilot, and like everybody else, trying to find some federal funding to sustain it. Because if your numbers, which happily coincide with my thinking, a third of our workforce is going to need some of this upskilling. That's 200,000 people. It's going to take us a couple of years to get there. But I had one lady at a library that came up to me after the class, and she just said, "Thank you so much, Ka'ala. It was a good class. You made me feel not stupid." And I just thought, that was one of the nicest things anybody ever said, to me. And I loved it. But I think what Scott's getting at here too is us, everybody, not just the employees, but the employers learning how to adapt in this too. So when LinkedIn puts up these certifications, or you take this class and you get it on your LinkedIn profile, that means something. And we're trying to support that and get people upskilled as much as we can. And absolutely love that you're on this to share some of this information with us. So if a couple of things, there's, several types of people on our call here, people in policy, in the government, public sector, individuals who may be looking for a job. So I have the link to that you sent to me, the 10 trainings, right? So what would somebody do who would want to take that? Can they just click on it, or what's the next step?
Yeah. This is such an important piece of this because so often when I talk about the course offerings, people think that you have to have a username and password, or there's some catch with the money. And I'm telling you, it's opportunity@linkedin.com, and there is no there's no barrier to entry. You just start clicking. At the bottom of the first page, it says there's one whole section on, learning. There's a section on finding a job, and then there's an entire section to the right around employability skills, where you can test out answers to interview questions. And we even have a bot that you can practice interviewing remotely. And so there's 3 sections. You click on the learning section on the left, click it, boom, there's the 10 pathways. Click whatever pathway you want, pick whatever course you want. And pretty soon someone is going to be talking at you through one of the videos very quickly. It happens quite quickly. And boom, when you finish one of the course pathways, there's one of the courses. The person will, again, you get that badge. And it's pretty exciting. I've had some
Digital
students.
marketing is.
Oh,
There you
sheesh,
go.
sorry.
See, that's exactly what I mean. I mean, people are surprised, but it's
a fundamental
great.
part of every business.
I just started
But in
clicking
today's
on this, and all of a sudden this guy starts talking at me. I was off camera clicking around. But you're right. That is amazingly quick. And so this is for a class, and I didn't even know what I'm talking about, digital marketing foundations. And, my kids are involved in digital marketing. That's what they do. And, all three of them are doing this. And so I'm going to get them on this too and get some certification. So that's for the employee, right? Or somebody who is looking for a job, looking to get upskilled. In the last couple of minutes that we have over here, anything that you would recommend for employers, companies, organizations, and how they can use this?
It just depends on what their goals are for as a business, right? If you, as a business, want to get all of your employees smarter on sort of the basics of data science and data manipulation or data visualization, maybe you're more of a web-based company and you want that sort of skill set to be ubiquitous throughout the company, there's one whole pathway on that, and you could request or require all of your employees to take that particular pathway. There's other sort of psychosocial more courses in there, how to deal with an abusive customer within the customer service pathway. If you're problem solving or troubleshooting within your company, maybe you're having some incidents, you could recommend a particular course. If, let's say, you want everybody to become more sensitive, just more informed on diversity and inclusion, we have an entire pathway on diversity and inclusion. So to me, it's what are your business goals? What are your business needs? Where do you see yourself headed? How do you want your employees to get ready for where you want to go? And then, maybe even have a virtual work group or an in-person coffee clutch or wherever people are with COVID-19, but a way to reflect on the courses and talk about them. I've done that with different groups, and it's actually really fun.
Yeah, no, it sounds great. And I think what you're saying is if we know that we're here and we want to go there, there's all of these resources to help us get there. And that was one of my big goals, one of our goals at WDC, to just get this live thing going with you, is just to share it. Because so many people that I've spoken to said, what is that Microsoft, LinkedIn skills initiative? And I'm like, whoa. And so we want to thank you for getting that out here. We are talking, as a matter of fact, with the LinkedIn Learning people to try and offer like licenses or seats, for people to come on. I know this is a paid thing, but DBED, our Department of Business, Economic Development and Tourism, is trying to promote remote work. And so we're trying to upskill people, not just at this is a wheel in the middle of my mouse, or what? I can write.
Right.
But people who have skills, but just maybe want to be occupationally mobile. And we're saying, in less than 12 months, you're in this job, you're here, you can be here. And here's the resources. So we're trying to get that together. For people who are watching this now and live, and maybe later, hit me up. We're working on that now, so we're getting funding for this. I would love to see our entire state workforce, there's like 600,000 people, have access to like online learning resources. Employers have access to this. Upskill and get Hawaii, competitive, not just with in the country, but now like you're in Washington, D.C., we're talking about being competitive with the entire world. And that is a big deal. Shout out to Max Holloway. He's our UFC champion who competes around the world. And I think we've got to be kind of like Max, I don't know if that works.
Yeah, I mean,
metaphor, UFC.
That is the one thing. So, and I know we're wrapping up, but that's the one thing that I've been sort of hoping for. I keep asking different state leaders and chambers of commerce, et cetera. Like, I think incentivizing people too, it doesn't even have to be necessarily money, but like, having the top 10 people in Hawaii who have the most badges over a certain amount of time, invite them on your show, give them accolades, a graduation or I'm not really sure what holds that currency in Hawaii, but something to celebrate people. I've always, I've done a lot of work in the K-12 space, and I've always been amazed at how much work kids will put into an assignment when they think their name might go up in lights. And we're all the same. I mean, I'm the same way, right? But with adults, I think it might be a great way to celebrate people and to get people engaged. The other thing is, just because I know a lot of the Hawaiian leaders from your state are on, call on us, call on companies to do more. Jonathan Noble may be watching. He's my colleague and he focuses on Hawaii. And there's me and there's a whole bunch of us in Seattle. And we want to be helpful during this time. And it's sincere.
Yeah. And I really appreciate that. And you said that to me months ago. And I said, okay, we're going to put a live together. And you go, okay. And then all of a sudden, here we are. You kept your word, and I appreciate it. When we start talking about where Hawaii is, again, Kimo talking about people bypassing us. Back in the day, in the 1800s, Hawaii had one of the highest literacy rates. I'm talking about the 1800s, like 1832. The highest literacy rates of any of the nations in the world. We were our own nation back then. It was something like 95% of the population was literate. And, right now we're talking about where is our digital literacy. So we're trying to find that out. We should have data in the next 4 months about where Hawaii is. But we want to go and look at that PIAC thing and OECD and compare where we are and then do a Max Holloway thing on that, and say, let's get competitive because we can tie back to who we are, where we come from as a people here and take advantage of the resources that you're offering, and leverage them. So that we can, basically
and just
survive.
And that message that you keep going through, which is resiliency versus, I have talked to certain groups and they're like, but I don't want to be a coder. And I'm like, yeah, I see. I'm from Microsoft. You would see that. You would think that, right? And I'm like, no. This is like getting a badge and, dealing with a difficult customer, whatever it is. And so, making people feel like digital skills are going to be part of our future no matter what. Yeah. And this just goes into their toolkit. I think is an important thing, and just to call on us for support and help.
We're going to call on you all the time. You're going to be, hey, Kaala is calling again. Can somebody answer this?
No, that'd be great. And remember, there's a lot of stimulus money. We have CARES 1, CARES 2. We've got American Rescue Plan, and now we're talking about another infrastructure bill. I mean, libraries and museums, they're getting support. We've got summer enrichment money. We've got all kinds of federal funds to be creative with. And sometimes you just want a thought partner to troubleshoot it. I mean, to think through what are strategies. Amanda from NSC would be a great thought leader on that. So, it's just, again, we're here to serve.
Appreciate that. Thank you for talking story with us.
And this was fun, and I hope my talk story, I hope it was real.
Oh, legit.
That's great. Talk story, right? That's what you call it. Talk story.
We're not talking story. We don't have smoked meat. We have smoked meat. So we're talk story here. And next time we do this, you and Jonathan, maybe we have this down the street. One of our incentives over here is food. So we'll go eat together as soon as this thing gets better. Thank you so much for joining us here.
Thank you. And everybody watching, just thank you. I know this is just an incredibly challenging time, and just appreciate your leadership and putting this together. So thank you.
Mahalo nui loa. Thank you very much. Hui ho, until the next time that we live stream again. I think that's a loose interpretation of what that means. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for watching. For those of you who are on this call right now, on this live stream, there should be some links at the bottom that connect right to what we're talking about here with Microsoft resources. Please share that out to people. Get your kids on that. Every job is a tech job. It's not coding, but everything's going to require these kind of skills for them. So again, aloha, ahui ho. Let's do this. Aloha.